Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and welcome to the Eddie Network podcast. My guest today is Meridith Elliot Powell, a friend of mine from Asheville, North Carolina. We used to work together on some leadership stuff, and it's been fun to watch her career develop. And it's it shows me that if you were willing to work hard, you can achieve almost anything that you want to do. Mayor, I'm glad you're here, and thank you for coming and to give us a little idea of what you do and why why you think this is important to the world.
Yeah, so Ed, you and I go back a long way. In fact, my whole speaking career really began with you and Brian Byro and John Locke and others, and lessons in leadership. But I am a keynote speaker. I am a business growth strategist, best-selling author, and my passion is really helping people learn to turn uncertainty into their greatest opportunity. If it's business, a competitive advantage. If it's life, just seeing uncertainty as something that can lead to to a better life. Just yesterday, I was in Michigan speaking with a group of leaders, and I had one of the gentlemen come up to me and gave me a phrase that I've just gotten really excited about. And he said, "The gift of your lowest moment." And if I had to say what I do, it is helping people see that life is full of ups and downs. And if you focus on the right things, the downs can lead to some of your greatest breakthroughs.
I totally agree with that. I mean, it reminds me, I had Whitney McDuff on here back in the middle of the year. I don't know if you know Whitney,
I don't.
Well, you should. She's a dynamo, and she helps people who get into speaking and that stuff like. But we started a conversation. She offered us something similar. She had heard this woman talk about this sense of being a fraud. You know, you wake up in the morning, you feel like you're a fraud, and you're particularly if you're successful, you feel like you're a fraud. And she said, if you never feel like you're a fraud, then you're not trying hard enough.
That's great.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I had that feeling that morning, and it was that morning.
Yeah.
So I like that this lowest point has some value. Let's describe, what is that? What does a lowest point look like?
The lowest point, it's certainly different for everybody. I mean, the gentleman that I was speaking with was 14 years old when he lost both of his parents, and he grew up very, very poverty stricken. He was speaking about another executive in his company, and that executive, who'd had a very privileged life, spoke of his lowest point as when his son got cancer. For some people, it's losing a job. For others, it's dealing with addiction or mental health issues. But it is, for some, it was just the pandemic and all the fear that the pandemic brought up. So I think it's certainly your definition, and there aren't extremities. It isn't that my lowest point is bigger than yours. Mm-hmm. It's just, what is stopping you dead in your tracks? What is making you feel hopeless and the inability to create success? And how can you start to reposition that as an incredible opportunity?
And if you were going to work with this guy, what would you say to him is kind of the steps that he would need to take if he was at a low point? What are the steps we would take to move out of there?
There's actually a lot of steps that I would take, but I'm going to start with two to really give them through. Number one is you have to train your brain to find opportunity. I've sort of become obsessed with this idea that I think one of the most fascinating things that I found from the research I've done is that success isn't logical. It is not logical at all. It doesn't belong to the person born into the right family. It doesn't belong to the person who has the best education. It doesn't belong to the person who has the most resources. It is really a function of vision, of what you train your brain to find. Now, I need to combine that with the fact that we all have fears and anxieties, right? Like, I just have days where I get up and I think there's no possible way today's going to be a good day. And if you ignore what you are afraid of, it will manifest inside you. So you have to release what you're afraid of now and then. And it's a great exercise I do with a lot of my clients, whether we're working on a personal level or a professional level. And I just want them to get out of them everything they're afraid of, absolutely everything you're fearful of. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough education. I just got laid off from my job, all these reasons. And then divide those into what you can control and what you can't control. And success and thriving in uncertainty and using your lowest moment as leverage to create your greatest opportunity is about focusing on what you can control. And if you can get rid of the things that you fear, then you'll get the anxiety out of you and you can refocus on what you can control.
I like that very much. And I see that in many of the people that I've met over the years. And, you know, I think they have done a very good job of making a decision. They're separating the pieces into different piles. And there's some of these piles that they just stick over in a box, stick it over in the corner and forget about it.
Yeah.
And they focus on these few things that are really gonna give them the advantage that they really need.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, you know, I think it's a little more difficult in today's marketplace because we have two very negative things happening in society. Number one is every message that we get, or so many messages that we get, tell us that our circumstances are not our fault. And while that's true, I mean, it's not my fault that my first husband, you know, was an alcoholic, and that was a really challenging time in my life. If I cast blame on other people, I lose all my power.
Mm-hmm.
And while it wasn't my fault that my circumstances were bad, it was my fault I was choosing to stay in them. So much messaging is why it's everybody else's, or it's society's fault, or it's the government's fault, or it's big business's fault, why you are where you are. The second message is we get so much negative messaging out there that we lose sight of any positive. And so we have to work harder to retrain our brains. I really work with my clients. I think the first thing that you put into your mind in the morning is really important. I take 10 minutes every morning and I meditate. It's not very impressive, but that's as much as I can do. And then I read my goals. I really focus on what I want my brain to find. And I think we have to work doubly hard in today's marketplace.
I agree with you. And I think that whatever is the idea in your mind that you're focusing on, has to have some sort of action tied to it, because the replication of that action creates the muscle memory of success, or the muscle memory of remembrance of, I was there at one point. I was there last week. I can be back there today if I just focus this and then go do this one. You know, it may be meditating that you're doing, or it may be something else. It may be, I'm going to make 5 calls today. I remember you told me something, and we're going back 15 years. We were talking about business after hours groups. And you told me this is your practice. This is what you did. When you would go, you would look for 3 contacts that you could follow up with. And once you had those 3 contacts, you would leave. And that was your practice. That was an action that you took. I'm going to make connections. I only need 3. I'm going to make those 3, and I'm going to follow up with them. And I thought that was really impressive, because my sense was, I'm going to go to a business after hours group, and I'm going to meet everyone there.
Right.
And I'm going to find that one person that I'm going to meet. And so those were actions that we were taking that were a product of a mind of how we're approaching an event where we could go in just blind and without any purpose to it.
Yes, I agree. And I think intention is really important. Deciding what you want to do, what you want, and what you can focus on. Again, I sort of hate to beat a dead horse, but I am just fascinated by the fact that when I started researching organizations and people who have thrived in uncertainty, for so many of them, the odds were so stacked against them. I mean, they shouldn't have been successful.
Yeah.
But it is because they double down on what they focus on. I just finished reading a book about Booker T. Washington. And you want to talk about, I mean, this is a man born into slavery at a time when, Blacks were thought of, far less and didn't have any rights at all and no ability to earn an income. And he ends up dining with queens and kings and sitting at a dinner table with, the president. And I mean, all because he focused on what he could control and let the rest go.
So is there a way of identifying what you can control? Is there a methodology? Is there some steps that you can?
Yeah, I definitely think, again, one of my favorite exercises is just to dump it all out and get everything down that you're worried about and divide it into 2 circles or 2 columns. And what you'll find is the things in this world you cannot control will number in multiples. And the things you can control, it's a very tiny number. But but you can't control what people think about you. You can't control what the economy's going to do. You can't control whether people are prejudiced against you or not. But what you can control is your education. My father always told me that education was something that that you should focus on, because education is knowledge, and knowledge is freedom and growth. You can control on the relationships and the connections that you build. So really thinking about those things that you do have control over, but working, and it's so easy to sit here and say, focus on what you can control. It's simple, but it is not easy. It's hard. And you have days where you get consumed with the things that you cannot control. That's why you have to work at it. It's like getting in shape. It's like eating right or exercising. You have to work at it.
How often do you say no?
Not as often as I should have, but it's one of the pleasures of getting older. I'm 60 now, and I think about one of the beauties of being this age is I realize that time is short, and I want to spend it doing the things that I want to do. So I'm not as good at it as I should be, but I'm definitely better at it than I have been in the past, and it's something I want to get far more selective about. I have a little bit of FOMO, so that kind of gets in my way of saying no as much as I should.
Well, I asked the question because I've seen, this is one of those, I call a pattern of behavior I've seen emerge over the last 20 or 30 years, which is that people don't know how to say no. And particularly when they are attached to their phones, that there's a lot of no's that need to be made about their attention on the phone, but they're not doing that.
Yeah.
And so because what it does is it puts them back into this sense of, I need to embrace all these things because everyone else is embracing these things, and I want to be a part of that. And it's interesting, and it's enlivening, but it's not productive.
Right.
And so what I have found is that instead of saying no, we have to say a yes. We have to have a yes that we want to affirm. And that's why we're going to say no, that we're more conscious of these yeses. And I think that's what those yeses are, the things that we can control. And, and that's like time and money and our relationships with people. I mean, how many toxic relationships that do people have that they're trying to fix them because they care about them?
Yeah.
But those things are not, so they should be saying no. I'm thinking those 3 things right there.
Yeah, I think you're so cool. The other thing that I found really, really valuable for people, because what you're talking about is so important. I mean, we all watch social media, right? Yeah. And we see that, somebody just did something in Asia and we think, oh my God, I'm a loser. I only work here in the States. I never get booked internationally or something like that. Whatever your FOMO is, somebody just got a promotion or whatever. And I think another piece of the research that I came up with of people who've truly found success in an uncertain environment is people who make decisions according to their core values. they really are clear what they want out of life. And then they use those core values like a litmus test. I mean, I used to think that I wanted to speak all over the world. I really wanted to do international work. And then I found myself sitting in Southeast Asia in a hotel room all by myself, half a world away from the people that I loved. And I was like, what am I doing? This isn't what I want at all. And I'm still, fighting quite a bit to spend more time in my home, more time in my community, because when I look at what's important to me, my life doesn't always reflect that. And I think you need to start to get these in alignment.
Yeah, I agree with you. And wait 10 years when you get 70, it'll be even more important to you.
Exactly.
You know, that's where I am. But at the same time, I'm finding that my opportunities are greater, the older I got.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And there's, there's so much that I love about getting older. There's certainly things I don't like, but not too many that I don't like. But I love getting older in the sense that it is, you really do have to start to think about the relationships in your life. And you do have to think about how you spend time. And you do have to think about the life that you want. And do you share the values with the people that you're spending time with? Are these things aligned? Are they important? And you're so right, I've fought to try to save so many relationships in my life that were not a good fit for me.
I know. I'm the same. And the pandemic, well, I actually, we can go back, probably 6 or 8 years, kind of beginning with the Donald Trump era, all the way through the pandemic, the divisiveness between people became so intense. There's just a lot of people that I used to be really close to, but I'm longer because of that. And that's a way of saying no. And that's a way of saying, I can't control this relationship, so I'm not going to. I'm going to control it by leaving it. And that's really tough. But I think that opens space for another relationship to come in and fill that void that is created by the loss of that relationship. And so other people are out there waiting for us to enter into relationship with them. I mean, we could certainly describe that in terms of how we operate in a sales process. I mean, we're building relationships when we're out selling, whether we're selling ideas or a product or something else. I mean, this is where you really specialized throughout the last 20 years. Sales expert. And I'm really curious as to how you see this time of uncertainty factoring into what does it mean to be out there selling a product?
Such a great question. Number one is, I think it is uncertainty tends to stop people dead in their tracks, and people tend to look at uncertainty as a time when the sales process will slow. And I think that's completely opposite. I think that customers need you now more as we head into 2024 than they did in 2023, 22, 21, or 20. That, the value of you as a salesperson is that you're going to help me solve my problems. The other thing is that your competitors will pull back and there's more opportunity in the marketplace. So I think it's one of the best times to sell. However, one of the things that I talk about very much with my clients is that ever since we started to see a shift way back in 2004, that was the last time that the economy rode high before the crash of 2008. 2008 wasn't necessarily a recession. It was a flip in who controlled the buying cycle. And ever since 2008, the consumer has controlled the buying cycle. I mean, Ed, we know this. We could sit home in our underwear, Google until our heart's content, and buy anything we want to, anywhere we want to in the world. So it isn't a product that people are selling at all. It's a solution. And you have to understand when the market shifts, the solution has to shift with it. I may still be selling the same product or service, but how I sell it needs to change. Let me give you an example. I started speaking about uncertainty way back in 2018. When COVID hit, It became about helping people navigate the uncertainty of COVID. Well, now in 2000, as we head into 2024, I'm helping people navigate the uncertainty of geopolitical tensions, of rising interest rates, of inflation, and then the things that are very, very specific to their industry. So as a sales professional, I can't be selling a keynote about uncertainty or a consulting project around uncertainty. I have to intimately understand what's going on as the marketplace shifts. How is that uncertainty impacting my customer? And then how can I use my product or service to solve their problem? So I feel like salespeople, it really has to be now about truly being that expert and that resource in the industry, and stop selling a product and start selling a solution to the right problem.
I totally agree. And that's why I think having a story to tell is really important, and embedding in that story your solution.
Yeah.
And if that story is your own personal story, it has deeper resonance. I mean, that's what I'm seeing. And sorry, I'm gibbering.
You're good.
In 2010, I lost all my clients in about 6 weeks.
Right.
Thanks to and what they were saying to me, well, we're just going to kind of wait until this thing passes and we'll be. And I said, it's not going to pass. This is the future. This is what we're going to experience now, is the way it's going to be. And you need to be aware of that. But they didn't listen to me. And some of those people are out of business today. And so I had to change at the same time. And so in doing that change, I embraced even more uncertainty, because I became a writer, not a consultant. And in so doing, I had to figure out a whole lot of new things. And I had to figure out, for example, that there is a social dimension, meaning a collective group dimension, to this sales process. And people are going to buy, to a certain extent, by what they see their friends and their family buying. And so if you're applying this notion of uncertainty and the solution to uncertainty to a group, then they're more likely to join you in your solution.
Yes, exactly. And I think as salespeople too, we have to realize that that people are looking for somebody who truly understands what they're going through and what they're experiencing. And so marketing is just part of the sales process now. Every time I work inside companies and I talk to salespeople and they feel like the marketing department does the marketing, I'm like, no. You need to understand, you need to be positioning yourself in the marketplace, because if I've never heard of you and I've never heard about you, I don't care how smart you are. I don't know why I should talk to you. And so the very fact that you said, you position yourself as a writer, what a great way to position yourself, because I see you as an authority, and writing is such. I was writing an article last night on the plane while I was flying home, and I was thinking to myself, I love writing because I had an opinion that I wanted to write an article about. But until you write the article, you don't really back up your opinion. I can't really explain why I think that and why my idea is valid. And when you write, you have to go deep into thought as to why you think what you think and why anybody else should listen to you. And that translates beautifully into sales.
And I totally agree with you. And what I learned in this process was, what I know is insufficient. I don't know enough. I don't know. I'm assuming I don't know anything. I'm an expert and I don't know anything. And so I'm going to go out and learn what I can about all these other people out there. I mean, all these books I purchased most of these books because someone said something to me about something that I didn't know. I said, well, I need to know if I'm going to work with this person or I'm going to be in relationship with this person, I've got to find out what they really are talking about. So I would buy books and I'd read this stuff. So I would gain a facility for being able to talk to them. And that's been an incredible journey, because it's taken me into places that I would not ordinarily be able to.
Yeah,
go.
exactly. Yep.
And so my uncertainty is a gift. I see uncertainty as the greatest gift that has been given to us.
Yes.
And so if you're afraid of that, then you have to change your mind and you have to change your life. And
and that is, if I had to say any mission I am on, I want people to think differently about uncertainty, to be okay with the unknown. And even when the darkest door is in front of you, to trust. If you can train your brain to focus on what you really want, you will find your way through it. We have taken failure out of our society. I mean, we don't want kids to fail. Everybody gets an A, and the problem with that, it is from failure we gain confidence, and from failure is how we learn. You have a bad experience, and if you can get your ego into the right place, you can go, okay, that happened because of this. This is what I've learned, and that can allow you to go to the next level. I tell a lot of my clients, it's like hiking, right? Like, you get to the top of the peak. Well, the only way to get to the higher peak is to go down into the valley. And the valley is failure. But until you go into that valley, you'll never reach the next peak. And we've got to flip that around, because we're taking confidence away from people. And confidence is, you can give people everything in the world. I can say, I never want you to feel any pain. I'm going to make sure you get into college. I'm going to make sure you graduate. Then I'm going to get you a great job. I'm going to take care of everything. But what I've robbed you of is the confidence that you really need to be successful. So if I let you walk out on that limb and say, you figure out how to get yourself into college, you figure out how to get that first job, you figure out how to work and live on $20,000 a year, is everything that's going to spark you to achieve the levels of success that you ultimately want.
And those people need examples.
Yes.
And we're the examples.
Yes.
We're not the experts because we're successful. We're the experts because we've suffered through all this.
Yeah.
And I've watched you. I watched you go through this process. I remember when you first started speaking, and here you are now, the head of the American Speakers Association.
Yeah.
And that's just you're an archetype for me of a person who works hard, who is unrelenting and willing to do whatever is necessary to achieve her goals. And I appreciate you for that. And you continue to inspire me, because every time I see you pop up on LinkedIn or on Facebook or something, I'm thinking, wow, I mean, that's really good. I like that. So I congratulate you for what you have achieved.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about what I've achieved, but more than I'm excited about, just in what we were saying. Oh my gosh, Ed! I mean, I could do a whole program with you on the failures that I've had along the way. But every failure has taken me to the next peak. Every failure has been where I have learned and where I have grown. And even in the times when I thought this is it, it's not going to become. I'm not going to be able to crest that next level because, the uncertainty at this time doesn't look positive for me. Somehow you push it on through. And so I think that, years ago, one of my idols in the National Speakers Association was a woman by the name of Connie Podesta. And the reason Connie Podesta was an idol to me was not only was she a phenomenal speaker, but there wasn't anything special about her. She didn't have a handicap. She hadn't climbed Mount Everest backwards on one foot. She wasn't an athlete. She hadn't survived, some type of terrible tragedy. She was just a person with a message and a really strong work ethic. And I thought, that's the type of speaker that I want to be. I mean, we all have a story. Everybody has a tragedy in their life, and you can use that to to push that forward. But Connie used to say, this isn't about you. It is about using the things that you have overcome in your life to try to figure out how to help other people and to focus on their problems rather than to focus on your own. And I don't know, that really struck me as being really important. So what I'm excited about is I hope when people look at me, they look the same way they do as they did at Connie, in the sense that there's nothing I've done that you can't do. I mean, now you look at an all-star football player or some Olympic athlete, you look at that and you think, well, I could never do that. And as much as I probably could climb Mount Everest backwards, I don't want to. So, and so those things on some level are unrelatable. I wanted to be really relatable.
And so in order to do that, you have to be really clear about what your purpose is and your core values. But that sense of purpose leads to a mission that is what activates that sense of purpose. That's what I see. And I have people like, and you probably have people all the time coming up to you to say, well, how do I become a professional speaker?
Yes.
I have people come up, how do I get a book published and things like that? And, it's, you don't want to discourage them, but at the same time, you don't want to just kind of give them the pat answer. Well, you just have to work at it or something like that. So what do you tell people when they come to you and say, I would love to become a professional speaker? What do I need to do?
Yeah. So number one, I mean, I always tell people they need to join the National Speakers Association, because I think relationships and information are so incredibly important. But I always tell people that the reason that I work, there's three. Number one is if you want to make it as a professional speaker, you have to be relevant. You have to be speaking about something that will actually help people. So me getting up and telling my story, I may get booked a little bit, but how does my story really help people? And that's where I came up with this idea of writing this formula to help people thrive in uncertainty. So listen to your customers. What are they complaining about? What are they struggling with? What are they frustrated with? Ed, you were involved in my very first book, Turn Prospects into Customers and Customers into Champions. I wrote that book because everybody was asking me, how do I turn a prospect into a customer? So be relevant. Number two is you've got to be good. You got to learn to tell stories. You got to realize that there's nothing you're talking about that people couldn't Google. So if they can Google it, why should they listen to you? So you've got to learn to give information in a way that is entertaining, that is engaging, that makes people want to lean in. And last but not least, you got to be a hustler. You got to realize that this is about day in and day out working at getting booked to speak. I've been at this since 2009. And there's not a day. Everybody thinks I sit in my office and all my work just comes to me. Not true. I reach out every day of my life looking for work. I did it this morning. So those three things are what I say to people. Well, four. Number one, join the National Speakers Association. Get around like-minded people. You know this. You're an ultimate networker. There's an osmosis about being around people that are doing what you do that you can learn from. Second, you got to be relevant. Talk about something that matters. Number three, you got to be good at this. You got to learn. I have never done. I worked when I finish out the year, I've done over 100 keynotes this year. I've spoken in 3 different countries this year. But I just ripped my keynote up. I just blew up the opening and just blew up the ending. It's never good enough. I always got to get better. And then number 3, you got to hustle.
That is really true. The hustling is the part that is really the secret sauce, I think.
Yeah.
Because if you're not working hard, then you're not going to achieve, because everyone else who is your competition is working harder than you are. And
right.
So you got to outwork them. And
that's exactly right. That's
you got to out network them, and you got to outthink them. And it's really, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not about outing anyone. It's about connecting with the people who need to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, everyone, I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope it's inspired you. I hope you will work hard today. I hope you will not settle for half measures, because I can tell you, it's not going to get you what you want. Meridith is an example of what you can be. And I encourage you, if you have any notion of wanting to be a professional speaker, that you check out the American Speakers Association. All right.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you. And I just got to say, I'm a big believer, build your network, change your life. So if anybody wants to connect, if there's anything I can do to help you, please reach out and connect with me.
That's right. And you can do that. But if you want to get to know Meredith, then you can just put something in the answer the question or give a comment. Sorry, I'm gibbering again.
You're good.
And we'll be in touch with you. So it's that easy. It takes that kind of initiative. It's the start. It may be the start of something that 20 years from now we're going to look back and say, this was the moment. This was the moment. And there are those moments, aren't there?
Yes.
And I remember a speech you gave where you gave about half the speech with your back to the audience.
Yeah.
I think that was your first one. And I said, this is going to be great to watch her growth of this. And it is really great. And that is what can happen to you.
That is exactly right. There's nothing that I have done that anybody else can't do. Mine is really the story of those steps and those strategies that I gave you for however you want to define success for you.
One more story, Mayor. I think everybody feels like they're not good enough and that they need to go learn a lot, which is true. But I've been doing some work in Africa, and I took the Circle of Impact and reworked it for an African audience. And we were trying to decide what the title was. And we ended up calling it Circle of Impact. You have everything that you need.
Love it.
You have everything that you need to begin the process of becoming a writer or a speaker or something other than what you've been doing, waiting around, fumbling on your phones. Now is the time, before the beginning of the new year, to become focused on being someone that you want to be, because you're going to work hard to become that person.
Well said.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Meredith. It's been great to have you on. And we'll do this again, and we'll talk about fear, and we'll talk about failure. I think that's a big topic for a lot of people. And fail often, right?
That's exactly right.
Fail often, succeed better.
And learn from it.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon here on the Eddie Network Podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye.